Hi, Christopher. Welcome to EXFM.
Hi. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. What was your first computer?
I think it was a Commodore C64. My dad brought it from the Hannover Messe the moment it was sort of like made public.
Is it Hannover Messe or Civet?
No, I think at that time there wasn't any Civet. It
Ah,
was Hannover Messe, I think.
and the Hannover Messe was this was a predecessor of Civet, or was it like broader?
No, Hannover Messe is still on. It's sort of like one of the biggest German industrial fairs, I would say. Well,
This is like the industry fair, and the Civet
yeah,
was a computer who came later.
okay, yeah.
Hmm. How big is it now? You still know it?
Well, it's still really big, but I've sort of lost interest in it because it feels like it's just filled with people, sort of like, yeah, let's say normal people running around with their kids trying to get as many pens as they can get.
Ah,
So yeah.
aha. Yeah, this happens on all conferences usually. Um, what I remember the Civet that at the beginning of the day, they made the highway broader, so there were like 4 lanes in one direction. And the end of the day, they switched over and made the living lane of the highway broader because there was so
Okay.
much traffic to the Civet. This is Civet. What was a Civet? Computer and no, what?
And admittedly, I don't actually know. Oh
Civet
well.
is maybe a computer, and but yeah, it's interesting what it actually means. What you did with C64?
At that time I was something around, I think, 7 or 8 years old.
So
So
you started assembler, right?
nah, no, no. No, no. I think I did a few little programs in
Oh, really?
in Basic. So I always sort of like, yeah. I think at 8 or 9 I actually wrote my first little programs, but yeah, they were just, yeah, sort of like, yeah, this typical basic if then else loops and stuff like
Hmm.
that. But I guess, admittedly, most of my time I spent playing games.
Yeah. So what is your very first game? You remember that? So you turned the C64 on, and you still remember the moment, or was it like not a big deal for you?
I think I got a tape from a friend because you got the games on a
Hmm.
cassette. And I think the first game on that cassette was uh, Wizards of War. It's sort of like
Wow.
it's sort of like a maze-like game, so sort of like Pac-Man, but sort of like, yeah, you're not gobbling up little things, but you're shooting
Okay.
odd-looking animals. Yeah, I spent way too much time of my childhood playing that game.
Interesting. So, and why you started coding or programming or whatever we call, the basic involvement?
Admittedly, I always just had a thing for computers and stuff like that. My dad was an electrical engineer,
Hmm.
but with a focus on, let's say, industrial automation. But if I look back, sort of like, well, the audience can't see it, but you can see the wall behind me. It's sort of like full of little blinky boxes.
Yeah, I
I
have to
always,
say, this is the geekest setup on AirHacks TV. So no one had, as a nice working room as you have. It looks
well,
like
it could be a
Star
lot
Wars.
bigger though.
This is the room of Star Wars. There's lots of, what is it, controllers?
Yeah, it's loads of PLCs and I/O modules for my PLC for X project. But I guess what I always loved. So I really early. My dad got me a Fisher Technic
Mhm,
computing setup for my C64,
mhm,
and I always loved, so like writing programs and have things in the real world do something.
mhm.
So I actually started doing that with maybe 12 or 11. Um, but then I completely, yeah. So I stuck with the programming, but sort of like the industrial part I dropped. Um, yeah, studied computer science at the Technical University of Darmstadt, and then sort of like, yeah, entered, let's say, a normal IT consultant, yeah, life. Yeah, till something around 2000. 16, I think it was, when this whole Industry 4.0 thing popped up. And there I saw a chance. Oh, now I don't have to play with this, because admittedly, I'm not a cloud guy. So for me, cloud was always just an excuse to even have shitty code run performant, because you just could scale up as much as you needed. So with Industry 4.0, I saw a chance for, actually playing again with sort of like real devices. And admittedly, if I look back, I think the coolest thing was writing a software for a 16 kilowatt laser mounted on a robot for welding things. And that's pretty awesome. Also made me freak out completely, but I guess a 16 kilowatt laser does more than sting a bit.
16 kilowatt. So 16 kilobyte. So this is boring. I know the kilowatt. This is a weapon.
Yeah. I think you could melt through 4 or 5 meters of concrete with that. So.
Oh, and you did it for fun? For Christmas?
No, yeah. Of course, I've got a 16 kilowatt laser in my basement.
Room looks already like that, so I wouldn't be surprised that it's okay. In the kitchen, I have the laser.
No worries. Well, I actually do have a laser here in my office.
Yes,
this little black box over here.
Yeah,
that's my party laser. So if I'm coding at night, I sometimes switch on a laser, listen to music, and just code away.
This is like, what kind of laser is it? This is like
like in techno parties and clubs, it's sort of like a 1 watt full color laser setup, but it's more just for meditating, let's say.
Wow. Best setup. You surprise me more and more. But by the way, this was also my dream, to program robots at the beginning. And then I also end up doing software. But even with Industry 4.0, I still spend time with coding, and actually also cloud. But if I do cloud, I try to be extreme in the clouds and see what happens. And the code, you are right. What interests me is the code can be crappy, but it has to be cheap. You know what I mean? So even if the code, if I understand the code, even if it's not performant and this is cheap enough, I'm happy. So this is actually these constraints in the cloud is completely different to your environment, right? Because I think in the real time, it has to run on real hardware, and the smaller the hardware, the cheaper it gets. So there are different constraints for that.
Yeah. So I guess crappy code. Yeah. Well, if you ask me, let's say most of the OT world, so the industrial automation software world, runs on shitty code.
What do you mean? What do you mean by crappy code? Is it like you wouldn't use streams rather than for loops because they are faster? This is crap for you, or more like
I can't really say. I just see sort of like the applications that you. Because in order to program these industrial controllers, you usually pay something around $1,000 to $5,000 for, let's say, a mid-sized PLC. If you want to go to the top-notch ones, you're in a 5-digit world, and then you usually have to pay something around $1,000 for a 1-year license of the software to write software for these controllers.
Is it Java?
Nah. I think the only industrial software that I know that's written in Java is actually from Inductive Automation Ignition. And that's really one that I really like. But yeah, most of the other stuff is just proprietary, closed source stuff. And I just, for example, I've got one controller from Alan Bradley, and the mother company Rockwell sells a software you need to buy, Studio 5000. I just think I paid for the light version. I paid something around 800 euros for a 1-year license to write code for that. And it's actually, if you open it, it's a super tiny little IDE for writing code. And if you're used to any modern software engineering IDEs, you will just think this thing is broken, but no, it's actually just sluggish and badly engineered. And that thing is sort of like I had to download 12 gigabytes.
Oh, sounds for me like a SOA suite. You know, SOA days where you also had lots of service-oriented architectures, tooling,
Yeah,
where you had to pay lots of money just to have some arrows between XML
yeah,
files.
yeah.
Yet, but
It's
we have to be more structured because Airhex FM is all about structure and agenda.
mm,
So you play the game Wizard of Wars, which I never heard about, so it's an interesting one. And then you started coding because of what? So why you were not happy just playing games on your C64 because it's a great machine, rather than you started to code something on?
yeah. Well, I would say everyone who started gaming, let's say to something around 95, 98 last century,
Mhm.
uh, was if you wanted to play, you had to sort of like dig into the computers. The computer just didn't run everything. You had to sort of like massage it in a bit, sort of like
Yeah.
you needed to learn. So I remember if you wanted to play X-Wing versus TIE Fighter on my PC, I had to sort of like boot my computer with a different configuration in my AutoExec bat. So it loaded some drivers in different parts of memory. So I had enough memory free for the game. So you really had to sort of like learn all of this computer hardware and how computers work stuff. And I was always just interested in this. So I guess the gaming and a general interest in the topic so like got me into coding.
Uh-huh. Do you remember the game Wing Commander?
Yeah, of course. I
Yeah.
had an extra config for that.
Yeah, because I never had the game, but I was aware of the game, and so okay, if I would get on a computer, I would just install the game. But was it actually good?
Admittedly, at that time, I think it was.
Mhm.
If I now installed it and wanted to play it, I would probably say no.
It's like simulator, right?
Huh?
So it was like a simulator.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Something
Yeah,
like this. Okay.
from now the day's perspective, it feels like sort of like an ASCII art
Yeah, sure.
like
Everything
simulator.
is ASCII. But now we are back to terminals, so all the AI tooling is in terminal again. So Wing Commander we could also run in terminal. Nice. So you okay, because of gaming, you had to use configs and AutoExec or whatever to set up your games with what was it, in memory, memdisk, right? There were lots of hacks back then with an extended memory, and this is how I started writing basic code. And what was your most interesting or serious basic program back then? Or something you did, beyond Hello World or beyond for loop with?
Yeah, well, together with my dad, sort of like we programmed little programs for my. I had sort of like an XY plotter from Fischertechnik.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it had sort of like a little pen, and you could sort of like make it draw things.
Mhm.
They looked really shitty because the step motors were, let's say, very rough.
Mhm.
So it was sort of like, yeah, like 8-bit graphics, something like that. And you could even sort of like, I just came across that just last week, and because I opened the box in which it was, even had sort of like a photo diode with an LED, and you could sort of like, it was sort of like something like a scanner, so you could sort of like digitize things. It looked really bad, but it was still amazing as a kid to see sort of like that newspaper headline. I think newspaper headlines was sort of the granularity that it could detect, to see that popping up on your screen. But yeah.
You enjoyed that back then, or you had to do this because of that?
Well, I did enjoy. So like, I think without my dad, I wouldn't have been able to do it.
Mhm.
But it was actually cool to sort of like change things in the code and see the robot do something different. It's sort of like you can't really compare it with coding today. I think if I got myself a Fischertechnik interface today, I think it would look completely like normal code or some low-code platform. At that time, you just had to type hundreds of poke numbers that you had in sort of like some books that were filled with which poke commands you have to send to do what. So it was sort of like, it just looked like poke, and then it feels like sort of like half a string.
So was
of
it basic?
numbers.
I think pick and poke was basic, right?
Yeah.
I never got to pick and poke, so I told it several times on this podcast, because I had I had a ZX Spectrum and there was pick and poke. I had no idea what it does. So I tried everything with 2 for loops, and sometimes it just stopped working. And after years, I found out.
Well, I think it was just reading and writing.
Yeah, to memory.
So.
But you had no memory map. You had no idea what happens, because if it was you could do everything.
Without the book, you're just screwed.
Yeah, exactly. And this is what I didn't know, because I thought some geniuses, they found out by whatever process they had to know what happens with the pick and pokes, and so I was completely lost. Okay, but Fisher, I was aware of that. So there was Fisher and lots of Cosmos stuff. You remember the Cosmos electronic stuff?
Yes. I still got some of those, sort of like build your own radio with these little.
Yeah, I was fascinated by that.
Yeah, I got loads of those downstairs.
Okay, super cool. So when you switch programming languages, what was the next one?
Well, I think so I played with Basic, and I think it was during school time, because at that time, well, we didn't have any computer science at school. So we did have a room with computers, and they were usually old, so like from some insurance companies, some old computers with 2 of the 4
exactly
1/4-inch floppy disks. You could sometimes even read the names of sort of like contracts they had open when they went to holiday, because they were burnt into the screen. So you couldn't really learn anything about computers at school. So I remember in Germany we have something called Volkshochschule. It's sort of like private people offering courses to what they think is interesting, and other people can just show up and sort of like sign up. So I remember I visited a C and C++ course. I think it was something around 94. No, it must have been even earlier.
Is the VHS or Volkshochschule still around?
Yeah. Yeah, so I think it was around 92 or so that I sort of like, as a school kid, in the evening I learned to code C, and I'll never forget that. Sort of like writing my first C programs, and sort of like on DOS, till I got my hands on some information of how you could do graphical coding. So I wrote my first little applications that looked like some window-like application, GUI applications, but they ran in DOS. So that was fascinating. And then at the university, in my first year in 98, my professor in Grundlagen der Informatik, or like the basics of computer science, he said, I've learned about this new programming language, Java. I want to try it out, so you all have to try it out with me. I think I started Java with version 1.07, I think it was.
1998, I think it was 1.1.
So it was definitely before the 1.1.
This is strange, because 1.1 happened early. I think 1997 was already 1.1. So your professor was late to the game, because and 1.1, I think, introduced init classes and JDBC. This was a big step, and of course the JIT compiler happened in JDK 1.17. I still remember that, because I had
I was just happy writing my first programs that drew things on the screen, and sort of like this new programming language, which was so much easier than C++. But I was still missing a few things. So obvious things are like multiple inheritance and stuff like that. yeah, had to rewire my brain a bit.
So you spend lots of time between, C64 and your study with computers, or was just, like, I don't know, a side hobby?
Yeah, well, admittedly, yeah, my parents moved from Germany to Australia when I was 2, so
Wow.
I actually grew up in Melbourne, Australia, and I would say, well, if you have a computer as a kid in Australia, well, you play with your computer, but you've got so much things to do outside. Well, if I look outside now, well, I think kids don't actually go outside and play there anymore. They just sit in front of some screens. But at that time, I actually enjoyed the world and life outside of the computer.
So you were surfing and
At that time, surfing.
I don't
Oh
know.
well, my parents would have killed me. I think.
No,
It
so
was
how long were you were in Australia?
till I was 10.
Oh, okay. I thought okay.
Yeah.
Okay. But at least, what was the most exciting thing? I don't know, kangaroos or whatever. What was the most interesting part in Australia for you?
I sort of loved them all. They all had their sort of beauty. Of course, when you're sort of like something around 10 or smaller, well, the impression is different. I remember, yeah, one thing you can't do now that we did then was sort of like just walk on top of Ayers Rock. And yeah, one thing that really blew my mind was looking in puddles on top of Ayers Rock. I mean, it's sort of like, if anybody who knows Ayers Rock, that's as dry as it can get. But there were waterfalls around that big rock, and there were ponds and puddles, and in these puddles were little sort of like Stone Age fish. They looked like these sort of like Gürteltier. What do you call it?
Oh yeah, okay. This I know. It looks like almost like a tank, right?
Yeah,
So, yeah.
yeah. And when somebody told me, well, they sort of like managed to survive there since the time that Ayers Rock was underwater. So that blew my mind.
Is it true?
Yeah.
This is crazy. And this is like it looked like an armored fish, right? So this is like the
yeah.
Okay, pretty cool. So okay, got you. So you started with Java at university, and you like Java because it was simpler, or you like Java because of other things?
Well, it was simpler, and what I really loved. I mean, yeah. Let's say at that time, if you sort of like accessed memory that you didn't allocate properly in C++, your computer just rebooted and you lost all the work that you did before. And I really love with Java that you could actually big time and you didn't lose all of your work. You got to, so, oh, oopsie, let me fix that and try it again. And it didn't blow up.
Okay.
I did like sort of like the whole ecosystem, because to me, I think the simplicity of Java was what seeded open source becoming such a big thing, especially at Apache. I remember something around 1999, I came across this project Apache Cocoon. I think even before it was at Apache. I remember them joining Apache. So all of this Java and XML and XSL transformation stuff, that was totally what I enjoyed doing. And admittedly, I still enjoy using that stuff.
Cocoon was big in Germany. I remember in all conferences, there were the Cocoon guys, with this was early 2000s, Jarks and so forth.
Yeah, yeah. I think Stefano, I think, was the guy who started it. I think he was an Italian guy. Yeah. Yeah, I didn't go to conferences at that time, but I was just interested.
And Cocoon was basically a publishing pipeline where you had the XML and you can apply XSL. And
yeah, it was sort of like, you have REST endpoints. And sort of like if you access a URL, you could attach sort of like a pipeline to it. And it always started by producing a stream of XML, transforming it, and in the end, serializing it. I did amazing stuff with Cocoon.
So was it Cocoon like one of your first projects, or?
Yeah. So when I started getting really involved at Apache, so as soon as you're a committer and a PMC member, I think the public list, you can even just go as anyone. So if you go to lists.apache.org, you can actually query the archives of all of our projects. So I had a look at what was actually the first email I sent to an Apache mailing list. And that was...
How you got involved to Apaches, or did we skip that? So you had to learn Java at university, you enjoyed the simplicity, and what happened then? So how you get involved in Cocoon or whatever? What were the next step?
Yeah, well, my first student job was sort of like being a one-man research facility for a telecommunication company. And they had loads of problems, which they sort of like solved by writing. So they had this data coming in a format and had to transform it and serialize it in a different format. And I was looking for solutions of how to do that nicely, and came across XML, XSL, and started using that. And from there I came to Apache Cocoon. That's when I even submitted my first patch to. It was a stupid patch. It was something just like correcting a typo or something. Well, it actually fixed something that didn't work for me, but it wasn't a big fix. But I remember how proud I was when one of the Cocoon versions was released and they mentioned my name in having contributed to it. I never became a committer at an Apache project for quite some time, because I was involved at, there was an XML database called Exist that also sort of like originated from the Technical University.
I never heard about that. Exists?
Yeah, I think the name Exist has sort of like been used quite often. So it was sort of like a Java-based XML database. So I was involved in that. Was sort of like a drive-by committer to loads of projects. And at some time I came across, I don't know if you know Adobe Flex.
Yes,
yeah,
absolutely.
So I drank the Adobe Flex Kool-Aid fully. So, but I also...
Hey, the XSDB is still around.
Yeah, I know that. I know it is.
It is actually recent. This is from May. Looks nice.
They're still active.
Exist-db.org.
I think I was committer number 2 to that project. Yeah, and so it's like when I...
There's even a book about exists.
Yeah.
From Eric Siegel. And Adam Retta.
Yeah.
That's crazy, really, because I never heard about exists database. They are on GitHub. And now verify.
At that time there was just, I think, Software AG Tamino. And that was just way out of my price range.
Tamino, I know. I was aware. So there was,
that was something like $100,000 for the XML database, and I just thought, well, that's slightly out of my budget. Let me concentrate on this open source solution.
But they are crazy active, actually, and the activity is still going on. 2025, no problem. The most active time was 2010 and 2006, but now it still looks really interesting, really okay.
Yeah, well, admittedly, our whole IT world is about consuming data, transforming data, and passing it forward in a different format. And let's say the XML replacement, JSON, YAML, whatever. Of course, that's more efficient, but I think still there isn't any final release of any format of how you can sort of like describe a transformation of JSON to a different JSON format, or a schema validation of incoming JSON. There exist some drafts, but nothing's sort of like final. And so if you want to really efficiently transform data, I think for me, it's still XML and XSL is the go-to place.
Yeah, and XSL is like a functional language, which is actually not that bad.
And, that was cool. I actually learned functional programming with XSLTs till at the university we had to do functional programming, and it's sort of, this is sort of like an XSLT.
So you're aware of Zelen and Zilsys, right? And FOP.
Actually, not.
Not Xalan with Xalan, Xalan.
Okay, yeah, of course, yeah.
Xerxes is with X. This was like the XML parser. Xalan was the transformer, and FOB was formatic object from Apache.
Yeah. I think even Ixalan and stuff are still Apache projects.
Yeah, and this FOB you can generate PDF from XML.
Yeah.
So great. So I learned about XSDB, which is amazing because it's still around. Looks good. High performance native XML database and web application platform. So curious about that actually. And so you get a student job as a research company, a singleton researcher, and you found Cocoon and Exist as well.
No, that was a bit later. So I was doing everything with XML. In the end, you need, if you want to start doing dynamic stuff, of course you can change XML files on the drive, but then you need to implement all of the database stuff by hand. So I thought there must be something out there. And then I stumbled over Exist and noticed, hey, the guy who's doing it, he's at the same university as I was. So we met in the cafeteria and had a little chat. And asked him where his pain points were. I started.
Why he did it?
Huh?
You remember why he did it? The Exists just for fun, or?
No. I think he was sort of like a research assistant at the university, and he wasn't even in computer science. I think was he in something linguistic stuff? So they had sort of like, it was sort of like, I know why he needed it. But it was sort of like different topic.
Okay. Which is crazy itself, right? Because if you are a linguist and implementing a database in Java is actually not easy.
Mm-hmm.
And what I also have Xside is like Xquery language, which is interesting. I hated XML back then because of deployment descriptors. There's lots of Java E, and we had to write these stupid XML.
XML wasn't the bad one in that.
Actually, for me it was. And then Xdoclet happened, and with Xdoclet you could put it looked like annotations. This was like doclets, so like the attributes in XML in JavaDoc. And Xdoclet read that and generated code. So I created some templates, and then I was happier, but it was slow. And then with Java 5, annotations happened.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, this Xdoclet, I think they were also inspired by Xdoclet because the Java EE 5 and 6 annotations were almost one-to-one the Xdoclet attributes. And I never use XML again for that purposes. So I say, okay, why we need XML? And since then, I just completely relied on convention of a configuration as far as possible. And then, Kubernetes happened, and I look at the YAML, and I say, you are all crazy. We had it already. So before I would write the YAML, why not XML? Because I was never able, to write correct YAML. So this was my problem. It was always wrong,
Yeah, I always got a space wrong, right?
Yeah, exactly. This was at the beginning. I was completely frustrated with YAML because everyone told me how easy it is. I knew XML; it was really easy, but I didn't like it. But this was not easy, and I didn't like it. So I think XML has its place for just to capture data. Works perfectly. It's just built in Java, so we have a built-in parsers which are great. And I still use XML for configuration, for instance. A great thing, and you can even generate terrible XML, but out of the box for properties, right? Java Util Properties is able to generate XML and read XML as well.
Mm.
Yeah. So what happened then? So as XML guy with IoT background, which is already crazy, that you like both.
Well, I always enjoyed sort of like doing highly responsive web applications. So I always say I did Web 2.0 web applications way before the term was even formed, because with Cocoon you could do almost magic things. So like Ajax calls we did them before Ajax actually was sort of like, this Web 2.0 thing was even sort of like, mentioned. So we did dynamic updates and minimal calls to the server and stuff like that. But when sort of like Cocoon, when they switched from 2.0 to 2.1, they switched from an ant-based build based on Apache Jakarta, I think it was, or I think it was called the there was this component framework, Avalon.
Yeah.
From the Avalon framework and an ant-based build, they from one version to the other they switched to Spring and Maven, but super early versions of both. And nobody had any skills in Maven and Spring, and so it became a huge nightmare to develop applications with Cocoon. So I was looking for an alternative, and at that time I came across Adobe Flex.
But Avalon was also huge back then, I remember.
Yeah.
So they were also on all conferences. There was about Avalon. And
I think Avalon was part of the Jakarta project.
Mm-hmm.
Apache Jakarta was sort of like the all of the Java stuff that we don't know that are not a separate project. They were all just stuck in the Jakarta project. So I remember when this whole Java X to Jakarta transition came up, why did they choose this name of this? For me, it was sort of like all the old stuff that I'm happy I don't have to touch again. So they chose that name, but I guess, very few people remember Jakarta from the early days. So I was in love with
Tomcat was Jakarta as well.
Yeah.
And Excalibur, exactly. This was Excalibur and Avalon. There were lots of discussions.
So as I said, all of the Java-related stuff. So there was the HTTP project, and I think Jakarta sort of like just was a container for all of the Java stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah. And then when I started building Flex applications, I missed like the ability to build with Maven, because I
you know when Apache Avalon was discontinued, in which year?
Nah, not really.
It was closed in 2004.
Yeah,
long time ago, because I still remember it, and it was it was closed in 2004. Yeah.
Yeah, so I wanted to build Flex applications with Maven, and there was this project called Flex Mojos.
Mm-hmm.
So I started using it, and of course I ran into issues. So I started asking questions on the mailing list. I started submitting patches, and that grew till I became sort of like a co-maintainer.
Of Flex? Of the Mojo?
Flex Mojos. It was sort of like a tool set of Flex plugins or of Maven plugins that you could sort of like build Flex applications as Maven builds. When Maven, the guy who built Flex Mojos, gave up on the project, I took over, and that was the time when Adobe gave up on Flash. Because of that whole fight with Apple at that time. And they donated Flex to the Apache Software Foundation.
Exactly. Still there.
And that was
flex.apache.org.
Yeah, and that was when the ApacheCon in Sinsheim was. I got a ticket. I took the hotel because I wanted to hang out with the people there, even if I could have gone by car every morning. So I hung out at the bar and chatted with these amazing guys, these sort of like almost mystical Apache committers. And I talked with them and came in touch with the Apache Flex project. So that seeded my involvement with the Apache Software Foundation.
Oh, okay.
So now I think I'm a committer and PMC member of, I think, 12 active projects at the moment.
Wow.
Yeah. So yeah, it's grown a bit.
Not bad, but a little bit back to Flex. What I remember with Flex is that they they tried to extend JavaScript, right? And they tried to make JavaScript type safe, and they also proposed back then the type safe extension of JavaScript. You remember that?
Yeah. Actually, at that time, there was sort of like this ECMAScript, I think,
Hmm.
was it ECMAScript 3
Hmm.
proposal?
Exactly.
And I think there were 3 initiatives that tried to implement that,
Hmm.
but they all sort of like didn't manage to get it done. Adobe had the, let's say, the unfair advantage that it doesn't matter which browser or which platform you're running your Flash player, your Flex application on. It's always running in the Flash player, and Adobe controls that.
Hmm.
So they were actually able to do this
Hmm.
ECMA. I'm not quite sure if it was ECMAScript 3 or ECMAScript 2, but let's say Adobe with ActionScript did what TypeScript then effectively did 10 years later.
Exactly. This is what I also remember. They tried to standardize to make a JavaScript type safe, and it
And it
failed.
worked. So
Why it
writing an
failed? Because there was
ActionScript,
no
that was
no
really.
second implementation. This is why it failed, right?
Hmm?
Why it failed? Because no one else was able to implement that, or why it failed?
No, well, it was reliant on the Flash player, and when Adobe said we're going to drop the Flash player, well, that's the thing everything ran in. But the productivity I had in the times of Flex, I haven't reached that yet.
Hmm.
I remember the last thing I did an application, and you could draw it like, because I'm an IT guy, I do good software, but pretty software, that's something others better do. And with Flex, I was able to sort of like draw the shittiest UI that you can think of, but it works perfectly.
Hmm.
And I could ship sort of like the skin module
Hmm.
to a designer. He opens it in his colorful drawing tools. He could edit my shitty design,
Hmm.
make it beautiful, send me back the file. I just needed to drop that in,
Hmm.
load the skin, and all of a sudden my application looks beautiful.
Almost like
Uh,
CSS.
huh?
Almost like CSS.
Yeah, well, just that it's sort of like, yeah, CSS always breaks my brain if I try to think
But
of
it's
how to.
got better. So the recent, standards.
Yeah. Well, I think I burnt my hands so often that I really hate CSS.
I try
More
to
than that, because
remember
the
the
skin
technology.
also contained logic. So you sort of like
Hmm.
had functional logic and you had presentation logic. And these modules could even contain presentation logic. So you could control the behavior of your components and not just style them.
Hmm. Would I remember another technology called, I think, Live Connect. And what it could do is you could have a 1 pixel applet, and the applet would get access to the DOM tree of the browser, and you can completely control the browser, which was also like almost like Ajax. So you can have 1 pixel applet which communicated with the backend, and you can on the fly, re-render whatever you like. So this was also, I think, was called Live Connect, but it was discontinued in JDK 1.6, I think. So they're safe. Yeah.
Yeah, well.
Okay, so which Apache projects are you involved right now? 12 projects, you said.
Yeah, well, let's say most of them I'm involved in, because I'm sort of like, if projects get stuck and they can't do releases because they lost control over their Maven build, it's usually when I join the project and I just fix the build and then they can release again. And usually I become a member of the PMC or.
So you're a firefighter.
Yeah, but let's say the ones. So I'm currently focused very hard on. So I'm still involved in Apache Flex, even if the project is pretty much dormant, and I don't really see much point in contributing anymore. I even became a committer to Apache Cocoon to fix their build. But after fixing their build and sort of like resolving all of the issues, they kept on saying, yeah, well, we can't continue because of blah. And I resolved all of the problems and no activity came back. So in the end, we decided to end the project. So I came in and sort of like started the vote on retirement. So I felt a bit bad about that, but I think it's the Apache way to do it. So I'm currently completely focused on the industrial, the IoT part. So I'm strongly involved in Apache IoTDB. That is by far the best time series database that I know. Apache StreamPipes. That's sort of like a cloud, IoT-based cloud orchestration software. And so if you don't know anything about Kubernetes and stuff like that, well, you deploy StreamPipes and it just works. Apache Camel, Apache NiFi, then in 2017, I even initiated my own project. So it was a project when I was still at Codecentric. Apache PLC4X, I mentioned it a few times before, is sort of like when this whole Industry 4.0 thing popped up, I saw, all of these use cases you people are talking about. Well, there's loads of open source software that you could use to solve your problems. The only thing I saw was missing that was a way to communicate with the industrial hardware, because I keep on making fun of people sort of like, well, if you're doing smart manufacturing and AI in manufacturing, well, if you can't talk to your hardware, it's pretty much useless. So the idea was to build something like JDBC, but for industrial equipment. So you have one API and you have multiple implementations of drivers. And then you sort of like just load the driver and use a single API to communicate with any type of device. That is sort of like by far the project I've spent most of my, let's say, time in. I think I'm by far the highest committer in PLC4X. I've been spending, let's say, 80 to 19 hours per week on this project for the last 9 years, I would say. It's coming along nicely. The only thing that really sucks is that, let's say, the automation industry hasn't quite understood the concept of open source yet. So they are they are happy if somebody's stupid enough to give them stuff they need for free, because, well, they are used to opening their purse for everything. So they're happy about that, but then they start yelling if you don't provide free enterprise support. I'll never forget a guy complaining. He signed up with his johndoe@gmail.com email address on our mailing list and asked questions about his private little project. And he needed a fix till Monday morning on a Sunday. And we said, we can help you scratch your itch. And then he said, but it's a steel melting plant and it has to continue running. I said, your private steel melting plant probably isn't that private, right? So put some bucks on the table and we'll help you. Otherwise, well, scratch your own itch. And that's sort of like what usually happens. I think all of the, let's say, consulting gigs that I was aiming for, also what Codecentric was aiming for at that time, didn't happen at all. I would say Germany is a particularly bad market for consulting industrial automation. They're just not used to doing that. So end of last year, I founded my own company, Toddysoft. So what I'm trying to do is bubble wrap solutions that I've already built. And
I would invite you back just to talk about that. So just
sure, happy to do that.
Now we have, but one question regarding PLC4X. You need a link to GitHub if there is any. So it's hard to find.
It's
from the website. It's plc4x.apache.org. But it's really hard.
github.com/apache/plc4x.
What I found is plc4x.apache.org.
Yeah, well, that's our website.
But this is the only website where there is no link to GitHub. From StreamPipes and NiFi is really easy to find. From Apache PLC4X, there is no GitHub logo. And what's interesting is Apache StreamPipes is Java. Apache NiFi is Java. And Apache IODB is also Java. So interesting projects. And actually, this Apache IoTDB, 6,000 stars. StreamPipes are 700 stars, and NiFi are 6,000 stars, which is crazy.
Yeah.
Interesting stuff. So what I would like to do is with you is that we walk through NiFi, StreamPipes, PLC4X, IoTDB, and to talk about the use cases. And then either about Todisov, of course, or about your company, you know. So, but first, maybe the foundation or the basics, what all the projects are about, and how your Todisoft is related to the projects, and how the listeners can pay you for what. What are your services? Yeah, can you maybe briefly, as a cliffhanger, what Todisoft is doing? Because I invited you because you attended the Java user group in Darmstadt, and what I listened to, I don't know, there was like, you know, after party, and I just and this was like, you said something like, you know, milliseconds or microseconds latency or whatever with Java, and I say, hey, you are invited, right? So this is the backstory of this episode, right?
Yeah. So the term real time, I think that's sort of like the most sort of like, you really have to say in which context you're talking about real time, because I think in cloud world we're talking about real time in, let's say, tens of milliseconds. If you're sort of like in the normal industrial equipment I have back here, it's sort of like, let's say, 1 millisecond. And if you go to the really isochronous real-time stuff, where you need special industrial hardware, we're at nanoseconds. So there are systems communicating in micro and nanoseconds.
I think the first time in the history of AirHacks FM, XML guy is talking about real-time.
I'm very diverse.
So what is Todisoft doing? Briefly, so elevator pitch.
Yeah, well, so I know there are a lot of open source solutions that solve real world industrial problems, and I was always waiting for them to just take up on that and earn a living with consulting, but that doesn't work. So what I'm doing now is I'm sort of like building installable products or plugins for existing products, and just to sell these solutions. But I'm not selling work somebody else does. I think that would be unethical to just take an open source project. And so I'm focusing on only the projects that I actually also help develop.
Why unethical? Unethical, because what you could do, you can sell the project plus, you know, commit to the project. So it could help.
Well, that's what most people. Yeah, well, in that case, then I would be contributing, right?
Okay.
So what many people do, they just take open source and stuff it in their project and sell their projects for thousands of bucks and give nothing back to the community. And
but this is impossible. Case, I mean, they will have to fork it, right, and then do something in private with the project.
No, well, if you're happy with the state of the normal version, you can.
Yeah, sure, but this is a little bit dangerous, right? Because if someone has request about a product, you have no idea what's going on, and
well, tough luck, huh?
Yeah. Yeah, okay. This is not. This is just. I would say stupid,
I mean,
not unethical. This is just, it doesn't work if you try to support software which you have no idea what's about. And if you would like to have idea about the software, you will look at the code and got ideas what can be improved, and then you will contribute back.
If you contribute back, everything's fine.
Yeah, exactly.
But just sort of like taking the work of others and selling it. And sort of like, and then maybe even forwarding support back to the community. That's just something I really hate when I see. But in my case, for example, if the audience can't see it, but let's say the equipment in the wall behind me is sort of like worth more than most people I know what their cars are worth. This money has to come from somewhere, and the industry just wasn't giving back. So that's why I'm switching the mode. I'm still working mainly on the open source projects, but let's say if you want the enterprise bells and whistles, now you have to pay for them, and that's what Todisoft is about. So like making.
But this is this typical Red Hat model, right? I mean,
Red Hat is sort of like I think still more on the lower level. So if you want to get this database, then you get support for that. But I'm talking about running IoTDB in Ignition. Then you just install the app for that. That app doesn't exist yet, but I'm planning on implementing stuff like that. But so you just install the app and it runs. And I don't think Red Hat is in this product business.
No, but similar business model. So yeah, actually great story. So perfect. So people can find you on Toddysoft and TODDY soft.com.
Right.
And why Toddysoft?
Yeah, well, I wanted to choose a name that sort of like related to, at first I started searching for some sort of like IoT soft, IIoT where stuff like that. I just thought, well, those names are just names that sort of like, if I tell somebody about it, they'll like, was that IoT soft or was that IIoT soft? And getting all of the domain names is also going to be a problem. So I thought I wanted something that also sort of like, let's say, pays attention to where it came from. And let's say the core of everything I do at Toddysoft is around drivers for industrial equipment. And in PLC4X, we have our mascot. It's a Palm Civet. And Palm Civets are called Toddy cats in English.
Ah.
So our mascot's name is Toddy. And so Toddysoft sort of like was on the one hand side, it's a name you can remember easier. I can get all the domains with all the endings that I wanted. And it sort of like still shows the ties of its origins.
Cool. Almost like DukeSoft, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Perfect. Thank you a lot. Was fun. And I invite you back and we'll talk about more specifically about IoT and Java and all the open source project. And then what you are doing with Toddysoft that I can understand better what it's all about, right? So if I will buy your stuff, what I will get, right? So when I need it. So let's say I will build production plan or whatever, right? So this will be interesting. Thank you a lot and see you next time.
Thanks for having me. See ya.